We are officially over halfway through 30 days of daily play inside your new book, The Daily Play, a 365-day art journal to reignite your creative spark. So we've been working on some mindful art exercises the past few days, timing your breath with your writing, giving you some tools so that when you're sort of at a level 10 anxiety or stress, you can come to the page and it's not about the outcome, it's about the process itself. So yesterday we did a moving meditation that ends up looking quite abstract like this and reflecting on sort of how that felt, and giving you a tool again that you can use outside of this art journal whenever you need it. So I hope you felt so far that we've been easing in. We're sort of introducing some tools. You've been experimenting with a brush pen maybe for the first time ever or for the first time in a long time. And day 16 is sort of a bridge between this slow introduction to some new techniques into us getting into calligraphy. So tomorrow, day 17, we're officially going to be starting our calligraphy skill building pages. But before we do that, we are going to talk about muscle memory and what that means as it relates to calligraphy. So the first question here is, do you remember what muscle memory is? And I know this is probably something that you are hearing me say every day, but I just want to make sure that we are very clear on what muscle memory is and what it kind of looks like in practice as you're learning a new skill. So muscle memory is a lot like training at the gym. You wouldn't expect to lift 200 pounds on your first day, and the same goes for learning new art skills. It takes time, patience, and repetition. That's the key word. I saw a few of you over in our private chat highlighting, underlining, circling things throughout your book, so feel free to highlight, underline, really mark up every page of your book here. When you repeat the same movements often enough, your brain and body start to remember them. This is especially helpful for calligraphy, where each letter is built from a series of individual strokes. Over time, elements such as pressure changes and basic strokes will begin to feel like second nature. If you're feeling frustrated at first, trust that your brain and hand will eventually make the connection. So, this is why this quote, or this art piece, I should say, is right next to a discussion about muscle memory. Because there is this period of time where maybe you've never used a brush pen before. So you started here. Then you're starting to experiment a little bit. So you're sort of in the middle here. And as we start to build skills and muscle memory, you might start to feel a little bit of frustration. But without this messy middle, you're never going to get to that knowing. You're never going to get to that period of time, like I finally am, where I actually don't even have to think about what I'm doing anymore when it comes to calligraphy, because my brain and my body have finally made that connection. But it is characterized in the middle by frustration, and if you are feeling frustrated, just give yourself a pat on the back, because that's part of the process. So we're essentially training our hands to move in ways that might feel unfamiliar or uncomfortable at first. With enough repetition, these movements slowly become second nature. So if your lines from day 5 were shakier or less straight than you like, you simply need more practice. Use today to build muscle memory intentionally by practicing thin upstrokes next to thick downstrokes with your brush pen. So I'm going to remind you again about how to hold the brush pen if you want to be able to achieve those nice thin and thick lines. And there's a visual here in case you forget, but the overall guideline is that you're going to put your thumb and your index finger on the top of the brush pen, touching that silver line, and you're going to put your middle finger on the bottom for support. Some people actually stick their pinky out as well for support, so experiment with that. My non-dominant hand, so over here, I'm just using my left hand to hold down the paper. If you're left-handed, you can absolutely still use a brush pen. You can still do calligraphy. The only difference is that you need to turn your paper, maybe even completely horizontally. So you might need to turn it completely like this. And if you're an overwriter, you're going to write over top of the page. Or if you're an underwriter, you're going to come from the bottom here. But experiment with the angle that you are writing in your book at. If you're right-handed like me, I've turned my paper at an angle that's comfortable for me. I'm using my non-dominant hand to hold down the page to give me support. Thumb and index finger touching on the top, middle finger supporting on the bottom. We don't want to be what's called the death grip. So when your joints are hyperextended like this, you want to be comfortable. The closer to the tip you are, the more control you have. So just experiment with that a little bit. But thumb and index finger touching on the top, middle finger supporting on the bottom is the general best practice. And you don't want the cap of your pen to be facing the ceiling like this. If the cap of your pen is facing the ceiling, you're only going to get one line width. Instead, I want you to angle your brush pen towards your desk. Okay, so you don't want it angled towards you. You don't want it angled towards the ceiling. You want to angle it towards your desk. And you might even want to mimic the angle that you've turned your paper at. So I've turned my paper slightly towards the left here, so I'm going to angle my brush pen so that the angles are parallel, versus if I go like this, that's not parallel. I know that's a lot to remember. The most important thing is how you're holding your pen and that it's not facing the ceiling and it's not facing you. So I'm angling it more towards the desk. I find it comfortable to sort of hold just above that silver line, and I'm using light pressure, slow and controlled to create thin upstrokes. And you could fill 3 whole lines worth of these. The goal is consistency, moving slow and controlled. And you want to be able to, at the end of a line of upstrokes, be able to look at these and think that they're relatively consistent. The goal is not to have the thinnest line in the world, but I want you to really experiment with consistency. So instead of flicking my wrist like this, slow and controlled the whole way. Then you're going to switch and you're going to apply pressure. Thick on the down by applying pressure to the widest part of the brush pen. Thick on the down, thin on the up. That's one of the mantras that you'll hear me say in all of my calligraphy workshops as well. Thin on the up, thick on the down. Thin on the up, thick on the down. And that's merely by applying pressure changes to a brush pen. So again, you have these reminders down here, but to get a thicker stroke, angle your pen towards your desk or table and hold it like this, pointing up here, with your thumb and index finger connecting on top and your middle finger supporting on the bottom. Apply lots of pressure to activate the widest part of the brush pen's tip. So hopefully that was a good visual example, but I would love to see your whole page filled with thin upstrokes and thick downstrokes, because again, we are building a muscle memory so that we can be in this messy middle and eventually knowing that your brain and your hand will make that connection. So consider today, day 16, again, that bridge between mindful art and diving into the world of calligraphy starting tomorrow on day 17. I'll see you then.